You're listening to a podcast appearing on the Two Guys Talking Podcast Network.
This is the Weekly Firecast, lucky episode 13, interview with Brian Henderson of BBQSauceReviews.com.
Strap yourselves in. It's time for the Weekly Firecast. This is the podcast for all foodies, those who love food that is cooked over a fire or feels like fire in your mouth. If you love spice, smoke, sauce, and all things savory, this is the show for you. And now, here's your host, chili head and barbecuer, Scott Roberts.
And welcome all fiery foods fans, barbecuers, chili pepper lovers, and hot sauce fanatics everywhere out there. Thanks for joining me. I am Scott Roberts, host of the Weekly Firecast here on the Two Guys Talking Podcast Network. If you're unfamiliar with me, I'm a longtime fiery foods blogger. I'm a product reviewer. I'm a columnist for Chili Pepper Magazine. And my base of operations for the past 5 years has been at scottrobertsweb.com. So if you have not visited that site yet, be sure to jump on over, take a look, and see everything that I have to offer for you. In this installment of the podcast, I talked to BBQSauceReviews.com head honcho Brian Henderson. And if you don't know about that website, it's a fantastic resource for everything barbecue related when it comes to, of course, as the name states, barbecue sauces and seasonings, plus they tackle barbecue, electronic and gadget and equipment reviews as well. Great all-around site, so if you don't have that bookmark, be sure to have that bookmark right now. Anyway, I'll be talking with Brian just here in several minutes. Plus, I'm going to be reviewing Race City Sauce Works Lucky Dog Smoked Habanero Honey Mustard. And before I get to those segments, just as promised, I had asked people last episode if you happen to share my link on Facebook, if you retweet my tweet on Twitter with the link of my last podcast episode, that I would mention you here on the podcast. And oh my God, did the retweets and the Facebook shares ever pour in? So I'm going to get to those right now, and I want to thank everyone for helping to spread the word. The podcast is continuing to grow by leaps and bounds as far as the number of downloads, as far as the number of subscribers. It's growing bigger and bigger, huger and huger by the second. Well, I certainly hope it is. Anyway, so here are the people who retweeted the link on Twitter. And this is in no particular order. Christopher Davis, and his Twitter handle is @Chris@RedKey. Neil Hadsall, and his Twitter handle @Neil Hadsall. Sean Mundell, and his Twitter handle is @TGuzzler. David Kelly, and his Twitter handle is @Norn_Ironman. Spice Mad, of course, his Twitter handle is @SpiceMad. And Mark Yeats, and his Twitter handle is @Mr. Yeats. And for all the fine folks who shared it on Facebook, this is also in no particular order. There's Conan Herring, Heath McDowell, Steve Chambers, John Ferguson, and I'm sorry if I'm butchering your name here, Bart Maher. Anyway, Bart has started a chili pepper blog over at Blogspot. I really wish you would kind of come up with a simple domain name. I would, kind of refer people over there. But anyway, thanks to him for doing that. And also sharing a link on Facebook was Mike Eisenberg of Wicked Cactus Sauce. His website is wickedcactussauce.com. Flaming Joe of FlamingJoes.com, makers of some great jerk seasoning and pepper jellies. Firehead Thomas Gately. Renee Rohrbach of the Madison Chocolatiers West, which I believe the URL to her website is madisonchocolatierswest.com. Then Mike Holquist of ChiliPepperMadness.com, and that's chili pepper spelled CHILI, peppermadness.com. Matt Bauhaus, John Dilley of Defcon Sauces, and you can check out his products at defconsauces.com. Steve Seabury of HighRiverSauces.com. And then there's my partner in crime and co-host of the Two Guys Talking Dexter podcast, Mike Wilkerson of the numeral 2guystalking.com. Oh, thanks, Mike. And I also had Jungle Jim's International Market retweet me. Thank you very much to the fine folks there. They have a pair of just ginormous, fantastically interesting grocery stores in the Cincinnati, Ohio area. It's worth a trip to Cincinnati just to go see those. And you can find out more about them at junglejims.com. And last but not least is Jim Duffy at refiningfiredchilies.com. Again, I give my appreciation to everyone who retweeted or had shared my Facebook link to help spread the word about the weekly Firecast. And guess what? Yep, this week, if you happen to share the link via Twitter or Facebook, I will mention your name, and the business owners, I will mention your business name here on the podcast in the very next episode. So don't be shy. So be sure to spread the word about this podcast if you like it, and I will mention you. And I'd also like to encourage everyone to keep the feedback rolling in. I want to hear from everybody out there. If you have any comments about the show, suggestions, anything positive or even negative, I want to hear from you. Simply go to twoguystalking.com, go to the weekly Firecast page, click on a simple web link, fill it out, and that's that. It couldn't be simpler. So enough of me chit-chatting. Let's get to the review of the week.
And now, the review of the week.
And my review is for Race City Sauce Works. The name of the product is called the Lucky Dog Smoked Habanero Honey Mustard. Yeah, both the name of the company and the sauce itself, the mustard, is a mouthful. But here's a cheesy little segue. You'll definitely want to get a mouthful of this stuff. This is my go-to spicy mustard. It's such a rich, complex, but still accessible kind of flavor for a mustard. Now, the owner of Race City Sauce Works and chief chef, Chad Lowcock, I think is a flavor genius. And this is just one of the many examples of his proficiency of juggling multiple flavors and multiple spots on the tongue where a product could hit, yet doesn't over-dominate in one area. You get just the softest little lilt of a smoky flavor. You get just a little bit of the heat from the habaneros. Of course, some of you mild-mouthed people out there would probably find this considerably hot. To me, it might be 2.5 out of a heat scale of 1 to 5. It's a rich, complex mustard flavor. There's a little bit of the sweetness from the honey, which I like in mustards. I don't like them to be too bitter, too harsh, too much towards, I guess, the horseradish kind of end. I like to be somewhere in the middle. And then you get enough of the pure mustard flavor to make it all worthwhile. And it coalesces into one beautifully balanced product. And it's an absolute no-brainer to put this kind of stuff on burgers and hot dogs, on smoked sausage. I'm a big fan of mustard potato salad. Now, I will use regular prepared mustard for the base, then I'll put a little bit of this in there just to perk it up. Boy, does it do a fantastic job. I love it. It's highly versatile. It's a great dip for chicken tenders. And it goes well mixed into regular barbecue sauce to kind of make a spicy, mustardy little version of your favorite barbecue sauce. It's great with shrimp and fish and baked chicken and crab cakes. And, well, as you can imagine, the list goes on and on and on. It's a stellar product. And like I'd already mentioned, this is my go-to mustard. This is my favorite mustard. And, of course, you can probably guess what kind of rating this would give. A solid 5 stars out of 5. It's an absolutely exemplary product. You cannot miss getting this. And if you're interested in ordering a bottle of this, it comes in a regular 5-ounce woozy hot sauce bottle. Maybe the only gripe I have with this, it's a very thick mustard. It's a little hard trying to get it out of the bottle, but once it's out, the texture, the very thick texture is dead on. It's perfect. That's what I like in a mustard. And combine that with the taste, a little bit of heat, it just, you can't get any better than this. And a bottle will cost you $5.99 on the website. An absolute bargain. So go to RaceCitySauceWorks.com and get you a bottle, get you 6, get you 12. And believe me, you will love this.
And now, the Fire Talkers interview.
My interview subject this week is Brian Henderson of BBQSauceReviews.com. He started this website about 5 years ago in 2007, and since then has become one of the best online destinations for barbecue sauce reviews. Since then, he's acquired the help of other reviewers to review tools and tech and seasonings. Plus, Brian has recently published an online book called How to Market Your Barbecue Sauce. So I will talk to him about all of those things right here in the interview of the week. So how are you doing tonight, Brian?
Hey, doing real good, Scott. Thanks for taking the time. I really appreciate you offering to have me on and talk to you.
Absolutely. Now, tell me, how did you get started with BarbecueSauceReviews.com?
Sure. So it's a little bit of a long story, but I'll try to keep it fairly short. I was actually bouncing around jobs in the 2005 kind of area, and I ended up working for a guy that had a software company in one side of the building and an energy drink review company in the other. It was a strange place. Yeah, the nice thing, I worked in the software side, and we got free energy drinks. So, I was kind of in heaven for a little while. Until, you start to get too many energy drinks and you start to talk all fast and it starts to get a little strange. But
at least you would have something to keep you up through boring meetings.
Yeah. So it was a interesting place. The owner of that was John Craven, really good guy. His company's called BevNet. And I just liked that kind of business model. And I started to talk to him. I said, how did you get started? He said, well, basically I was looking for a way to get free energy drinks when I was back in college. Mm-hmm. And so I thought to myself, what do I love that I want free stuff of? And for me, it's barbecue sauce. I've always loved barbecue sauce. That's the prototypical kind of, I think it's a classic American condiment. It's not up there with ketchup, but as far as kind of a unique thing to kind of have a spin on, I went out on the web and I noticed you were out there pretty early, so I definitely saw what you had done, and I saw what what's his name, Nick Lindauer of Hot Sauce Blog. Yeah, he had done some great work, and I kind of took some of those ideas and said, all right, I need to have my own spin on that, and I'm going to go down this barbecue sauce path. And I just started writing. The first thing I did is I went to the grocery store. I got about 10 different sauces, and I started to write up what I thought of them. I threw it into a kind of a Photoshop treatment to get the picture of the label and a star rating. I thought a star rating was important to kind of put yourself out there. You throw a rating on it, and kind of forces people to question it. It forces people to argue a little bit. Do they agree? Do they disagree? And from there, it's just been pretty good traffic, and it's just been a lot of fun for me.
Now, were you like a real huge barbecue aficionado before this? I mean, were you out there like cooking every weekend, smoking this, smoking that?
Yeah, that's a funny thing is I'm kind of the non-typical barbecue guy. I don't even have a dedicated smoker. I have a Weber. And I kind of convert that to indirect heating every now and then. I have the charcoal separator. But I think I'll get into smoking a little bit more this upcoming year. But I'm your typical backyard barbecue guy who just likes to throw stuff on the grill, nice and quick, throw some sauce on it, and you have people pretty happy. So I'm not your typical competition barbecue guy. So there's a lot better people out there than me that are doing sauce reviews that also are into the smoking and into the barbecue culture a bit more. So one thing I want to do is get a little bit closer to that. But I think it also relates to kind of the commoner is people just looking for a good barbecue sauce without having to go through the effort of smoking it or long cooking. So that's kind of my background.
Oh, definitely. And there's a huge contingent of people out there who, to them, the really fast and high temperature grilling, that is barbecue. The hamburgers, the hot dogs, the steaks, things like that. And I love to do that as well. Just a personal note, I think once you get a smoker and you start doing all that yourself, it's going to open up a whole new world and you'll fall in love with it. It adds a whole new dimension of flavors, especially when it comes to like reviewing sauces and rubs. So just be forewarned, you'll fall in love with it.
No, I'm looking forward to it. I've done the long cooking a couple times here and there, and when I go out to eat at places I like in the Boston area where I'm from, there's a couple places in Newton and a couple places in East Boston that are just amazing barbecue places, and I haven't been able to get to that level on my own yet, so I'm looking forward to that.
Oh, excellent. Now, of course, you've done the site for how many years now?
Yeah, it goes back to 2007. It was right before my daughter, who is now 6, right before she was born. It was something I was kind of cooking up at that time. Yeah, it's gone through these periods. I have 3 kids now, so when the kids are really young, it kind of goes into this little bit of a dip, and the reviews start dropping a bit. And then when the kids are older and when I have a little bit more time, free time to myself, I put more work into it. So it goes back to 2007.
Don't want to say recently, you hooked up with Jay Prince to do reviews for you. How did that kind of come about?
Yeah, one of the best things I ever did. And great guy. I can't say enough good things about him. Just a super positive person. He's in South Carolina. The way that came about is he started commenting on the blog. And, I'd put out a review and he'd say, hey, great review. I also agree. I like this sauce too. And after 3 or 4 times, I visited his Google Plus page, which was relatively new at that time. Mm-hmm. And I noticed he was putting out some reviews of technology. So he would go out and get I think he had a Android device that he just picked up for his home. And he just, on his own decided to do a full review of this Android device on his Google page. He was just sharing. So it's kind of this natural thing that he was doing. And I'm like, wow, this guy likes the site, obviously. He also was very much attracted to my Free Sauce Fridays, which I run in the summer. And he would win these things all the time. And I just said, hey, Jay, I'm wondering, would you want to do something with the site? And I've done that to a lot of people. I've offered, hey, would you want to do anything related to the site? And a lot of people say, hey, I don't know, I just don't have the time. Mm-hmm. But Jay just jumped all over it, and he's been writing these technology and tools reviews now for, I think it's coming up on, it's over a year now. So he's been doing great, and what I've fostered is a little bit of jealousy towards him because he's getting these incredible things, right? I'm getting sauces sent to me, but he's getting these grillers and smokers and these Orion cookers and these fancy pieces of hardware, and I'm staring at a pantry full of sauce. So he's getting some great stuff, and I think he's loving it. He's having a great time. We talk at least once a week on the phone just to keep up, and he's doing really good. He's liking what he's doing. I like what he's doing, so it's just this great relationship.
Yeah. Well, I like what both of your approaches on the website, and I think he really fits in well with that. Right now, how many reviews total do you have on your website, like all products?
That's a good question. I wish I had a better answer to that pair, but I would have to guess we're in the neighborhood of about 300, 350 or so. So I know I'm up around 150 sauces. And then there's some random articles. There's a lot of tech and tools reviews. I know Jay is up around, I'd say close to 50 different items he's reviewed. Mm-hmm. And our goal, it's kind of a thing that I think separates us a little bit, is that we take time with things. And I know it has frustrated some of the sauce manufacturers. We take our time. We make sure we're doing quality, not quantity. And we're making sure that everything we look at, we're taking all the right pictures. We're making sure that every word is kind of reviewed over and error checked and all that. So we try to take it slow, and everything we put out, we try to put out with good quality.
Are you like me in that you're so backed up with sauces that you might have dozens or even like hundreds of products in a review queue?
Yes. Unfortunately, and to my wife's, I got to give her credit where credit's due. I mean, she lets me have pretty much a dedicated pantry space to barbecue sauces. I'd say I'm up around close to 70 or 80 right now that are just on backlog. And what I've done, which is a semi-controversial thing in the space of reviewing, is I put up a review charge. And that is something that I kind of had to do because I was getting 3 to 5 sauces a week at one point. And so I said, all right, how do you kind of decrease demand a little bit? And putting up a price tends to do that. So, I've started to charge a little bit for the sauce reviews anyway. The tech and tools stuff is free through Jay, and then I also work with Wayne Brown, who does rub reviews for the site.
Oh,
and
yeah,
that's all free.
Him. Sorry, I didn't mention that before. Yeah, he does some good stuff there too.
Yeah, he's a great guy. Also does some great stuff. He's also more of the seasoned barbecue, not griller, but a barbecue guy. Mm-hmm. So he knows his stuff too. But yeah, so that has helped to kind of offset, he catches some people by surprise. I think, wow, you actually charge for this. But at the same time, the amount of time we put into it, the amount of care we put into each review, the amount of time it takes to go out and cook some of the stuff, we think there's some value there. And we don't get everyone that submits the sauce for consideration. They get my automatic email response with the fee information, stuff like that. I'd say, I'd say 3/4 of the people don't get back to me. Mm-hmm. But for the quarter that do, they're really happy about what they get. They get kind of an honest look at it. They get an analytical look at it. If it's good, I tell them. If it's bad, I tell them. I don't publish it. If it's bad, I kind of leave it up to them. So what I do is I treat everyone the same exact way. And they come in, I take it, and I go through and I do the cooking process. I write it up, I take the pictures, I send it back to them. And then at that point, I leave it up to them. Would you like to publish this or not? So it's a fair way to do it, but it's also in the middle of a pure, I'm not going out to the stores and just reviewing things kind of randomly. So it's not as, I'd say, objective as something like a Consumer Reports. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I think it does provide a valuable service.
Well, I could probably ask, a bunch of questions about the really nitty-gritty specifics about, how you review and all that kind of stuff. I won't get too deep into that, but I will ask you, What do you look for in a barbecue sauce?
Sure. The biggest thing, because people's tastes, both regionally and just how they were brought up and grow up with the different flavor profiles and whatnot, people's tastes are going to be different. So that's kind of a given. So I try not to put too much emphasis on my taste buds being superior to everyone else's. So I try to kind of keep that in the back of my mind. What I try to do is I look for things that I think define a good sauce, which is it, in general, does it taste like a kind of a natural product? Is it something that tastes like I think a barbecue sauce should taste like? Does it have a kind of a strange or chemical-like aftertaste? And I've had, unfortunately, a lot of sauces that fit into that category. Then I look for things like, does the label, kind of the promise on the front of the label, match what they're getting? And I'd say that's the most important thing that I do for the barbecue sauce vendors. So if they've got a label that is promising something like, hey, this is great on everything, this is a wonderful sauce, mm-hmm. I try to pick that apart a little bit. I try to say, all right, let's really take a look at that. Is this a thin, vinegary type sauce? Well, guess what? That might not go so great on something like chicken. Is this a really thick, sweet sauce? Well, you might not want to tell people to go put that on pork or put it on at a certain point during cooking pork. So there's different things I try to look for. I've gone a little bit back and forth on ingredients. I think natural ingredients are a good thing in general, but I try not to go too negative. I try to call it out if there's things like high fructose corn syrup. There are things like that are semi-controversial. Some people have hey, it doesn't matter to me what's in it, as long as it tastes good. Unfortunately, people are looking for those healthy ingredients, especially when they're navigating the website. If you're typing in barbecue sauce in the website and you're looking for barbecue sauce, the reason you're doing that on the web tends to be you're looking for something either specific or different. And just to give an example of that is my gluten-free barbecue sauce page is the second most popular page on the whole site.
Interesting.
There's a lot of people looking for these things because, if you're on a certain diet where you have to avoid gluten-free sauce, what are you going to do? Well, you don't want to have your lips all inflated. Mm-hmm. I have some friends with gluten allergies, and I've seen what happens when they're like, well, it's okay, I'm just a little bit allergic, and you see the lips kind of flare up, and it's like, whoa, man, what happened?
Yeah.
But so they're looking for these things. So I just try to provide it. I try to call it out. I try to make sure that the consumer that wants to buy the stuff is educated on what they're getting. So in general, I try to look at the sauce. Is it something unique? Different? Does the label promise what's in it? And then is there anything really off about what's happening in the sauce? So the flavor is kind of contrasting. Is it just something that's naturally a pleasant thing? And the other thing to mention, when it's cooked, and a lot of other sites I don't think do this, is I make sure to taste it before and after cooking. And when you cook with the sauce, no matter what kind of sauce it is, it always changes a little bit. Some of the sauces change completely. They burn off sugars and they get a little smoother, or they intensify with heat in some cases. So I make sure to test that. And I think cooking with every sauce gives us an edge in the fact that we're providing something that people might not get on other sites.
Very true, especially when the sauce thickens, and like you mentioned, the sugars, they could burn, caramelize a little bit. So that's always good that you tried that.
Yeah.
Do you have any particular favorite flavor profiles? Maybe, I guess, some of the so-called regional styles?
Yeah. So, I think the regional thing is kind of carried over from a period when barbecue joints, had their own profile. I think the regional thing is starting to settle in a bit, but I think in general, you get the East Carolina pure vinegar style. You got the West Carolina, which adds more tomato to it. your KC style, which is clearly thick and sweet. And then there's other things in between. I think Memphis and Texas style are debatable kind of flavor profiles. I've heard different things, but I think it's kind of like KC, maybe with a little spice added. Mm-hmm. But my favorite type tends to be the tomato-based with a little bit of heat. That tends to be just the most overall, I don't know, just a promising kind of flavor that you can pretty much use on anything. You can put on chicken wings, you can put on pork, you can throw it on a burger. You can do so much with a tomato-based sauce that has a little spice to it. Now, when I do go to a great barbecue joint, and when I do have the occasion to try friends' pure barbecue, like the pulled pork type stuff, I actually prefer more of a vinegar type sauce or a mustard sauce. Mm-hmm. So it really depends on what you're cooking it with and what you're eating it with. But for the reviews, I tend to use a boneless chicken, and that kind of is just it's almost like using a blank sheet of paper. You know, you're just using something as a vessel for the sauce.
Very true, and I think if they'll work on chicken, even if they're highly specialized. So I think that is, the carte blanche, so to speak, of barbecue meats.
Yeah, I think it tends to be a pretty fair thing to do, and it's just been the thing I've been doing. I think in the future, if we were to do anything, say, larger in a competition sense, I really like what the National Barbecue Association does with their sauce competition. So they really have it by meat. So it's basically chicken, pork, or brisket, and that's how the competition folks do it. And then they have a sauce category for each one of those. So they're really trying to align it to a type of meat.
Now, do you have a couple of go-to sauces that you always find yourself using a lot?
Actually, no. You know, I really try to stay fairly objective, not influenced by that, because I have so many sauces. If I see a sauce that's in my fridge that has been lasting a while and I kind of keep going to it, I might actually just throw it out.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, you know what? I got to move on. I got to get past this sauce. One sauce that I will call out and mention by name is one that I just thought was a great sauce, is the Out of the Park barbecue sauce. And I'm not sure if you've had that, but it's
Yeah, I've had that in the spicy versions. And I owe Scott a review. Oh God, it's probably come out on over a year now. I think I did the review for the Barbecue Central radio show 2 years ago, and he sent me bottles with new labels, and I still owe him that. So if Scott, if you're listening to this, I apologize. But good stuff. Yeah,
it's just a different kind of flavor profile. He did a ginger jalapeno. There was also another sauce from Hog's Heaven. They did an apricot jalapeno. I thought that was really great. There's folks that use kind of the nutmeg, almost like the I always think of a Harpoon Winterfest beer when I try those sauces. It's got like the nutmeg and the cinnamon in there. Yeah. I like that on occasion. I just like when people try to mix it up. You know, like I get a lot of sauces that taste almost the same. And when people try to throw in an ingredient, I'm kind of challenging myself to guess it, because sometimes they bury what the actual spice is in the category of just spices. You know, when they put on the label, they put spices, and it's their secret blend of spices. So I find that the most fun part is when I'm trying to guess what's actually in it and what these spices are that consist of it.
We're going to take a little break right now, but we'll return to the second half of this interview right after these messages.
Blood, a dark passenger. The binding ties of clear plastic. They're not just hallmarks of the hit Showtime television program, Dexter. They're bullet points talked about each week on the Dexter podcast from Two Guys Talking. Don't miss out on killer dialogue that leaves you with a bloodlust for more. It's the Two Guys Talking Dexter podcast for Dexter fans. Find out more now at twoguystalking.com. That's the number 2guystalking.com.
Do you consider yourself to be a chilihead and want to find some hot new gear to wear?
Oh, yeah!
Look no further than chiliheadtees.com. If you're a heat freak and love hot sauce, chili peppers, or anything dealing with fiery and spicy foods, this is the place to get t-shirts to show off your obsession. Chili Head Tees is dedicated to giving you the hottest t-shirts, mouse pads, mugs, aprons, and more for the discriminating chili head. Go to chiliheadtees.com. That's CHILEHEADSTEES.com.
You're listening to a podcast appearing on the Two Guys Talking Podcast Network.
Having a friendly, relatable voice can mean all the difference in your marketing efforts. Let Scott Roberts' voiceover be that voice. I can give you the goods, whatever your need is, whether it be for commercials, podcasts, voicemail phone systems and on-hold messages, business presentations, websites, audiobooks, and more. If you require a personable, real, down-to-earth voiceover artist, then look no further. You can find out more at scottrobertsvoice.com.
TwoGuysTalkingPoker.com. I'm Vic Porcelli, that's one guy. And Big Slick, a.k.a. Andy Kazin, he's the other guy. Hiya.
Hey, that's me.
You know, Andy and I catch some hot hands when we're playing poker, but if you want to talk about hot sauces, chili peppers, any food with real heat, it's Scott Roberts and the Weekly Firecast on the Two Guys Talking Podcast Network.
And we are back, and here's the second half of the interview.
Kind of shifting gears here, you have created a new ebook called How to Market Your Barbecue Sauce. What was the genesis behind doing that?
Yeah, the ebook started out because, we're doing reviews on sauces and technology and tools and rubs related to barbecue sauce. But I get a lot of people that just come and say, all right, well, I'm about to bottle my barbecue sauce. Do you have any tips? And I was getting on the phone with these people. It's just really fun to find people at that beginning stage and to throw some inspiration at them. Hey, you can do it. All you got to do is this. You go find a co-packer and blah, blah, blah. And I found myself saying the same exact type of thing. And it was all based on talking to other barbecue sauce makers because I've never actually gone out and made my own sauce and tried to market it. Mm-hmm. So I was just talking to lots of people. Scott from Out of the Park, Ron from Pig Chaser, guys from Bone Sucking Sauce, Patrick Ford. So I just had all these conversations. David Ashley from Mad Dog, trying to find out how they get started. I just found it really interesting. They're just very, very generous with their advice. I think barbecue sauce is a category kind of like craft beer these days, where there's just so many choices out there. And so much room for anyone to kind of start it up and do it themselves and have their own little mark on the world. And I just found it really interesting. So I wanted to encourage that. I wanted to show people how easy it can be, but also learn from some mistakes that I've seen some of the other barbecue sauce makers make. And by putting it in a single area instead of making them go through years worth of my reviews, because I try to stick these tips into each review too. Mm-hmm. I just need to stick it in one spot, and it doesn't hurt that, I've spent some time on it. I had a graphic designer make it look real pretty. I hired a logo designer at one point. So I've spent a little money on the site, so I wanted to kind of recoup some of that investment, so I charged for it. So I put that out there, and the response has been really well. I sold about 100 copies in about 2 weeks, so people are definitely out there. They're interested in it, and it's pretty good.
Well, that's a pretty good response to that. Now, when you researched and actually, I guess, went through the different steps of what you should do, did you find a lot of the people you talked to, did their own process deviate from your advice that you put in the book, or was it almost always following, a single process? First you do this, then that, then step number 3, 4, etc.?
It's funny that the barbecue sauce game tends to come down to distribution. That's the key challenge. So people have their own ways of getting distribution fast. And so I'd say that's the only real difference. Everyone goes through the same process. They come up with a recipe. They bring it to a co-packer that tends to scale up the recipe and hopefully not screw up the recipe in the process, because it's never the same as when you have it in a small batch, and then when they try to multiply it times 100. There's always some compromise that goes into it. Once they get it past that step, then the goal is to obviously sell it. And when you're trying to sell it, there's a couple different ways to go. You can do the online thing, and then you can do the local thing. And sauce makers today tend to do a little bit of both of those. So the challenge with online is the shipping cost. I mean, that's really the big killer of barbecue sauce. It's this, heavy item and got to ship it. So if people want to sample one bottle, man, it's almost the same cost to ship a bottle than it is to pay for the actual sauce itself.
Very true. And that's why people should purchase, not in bulk, but multiple items when it comes to an online sauce.
Yeah. If you find a sauce you like, one way to do it is to go to things like sauce competitions or, try different things, maybe read reviews if you trust reviews, and try different things. And if you like it, order a 4-pack. But that's a big thing. So some people end up going to brokers to get their stuff into supermarkets. They go and work with different types of salespeople. Bone Suckin' Sauce, that was a distribution company before it was actually a sauce company. So they had kind of a distribution channel already all set. So there's some people that already have kind of the distribution ready to go, and other people that just have to grow it from scratch. So I'd say the biggest thing that I would give for advice in that area is that I've found a couple people recently try to manufacture it themselves. So they try to go and they rent out the kitchen on their own and they try to kind of do their own manufacturing. I'd say every successful person that I've talked to in the past year goes to a co-packer, and they let them deal with the cooking and the processing and the bottling and all that stuff. So that's one step that I would say is pretty much a critical thing for people to do if they don't want to lose too much money right away.
And of course, it sounds very similar to the hot sauce world. I've thought of a similar thing over the years, how to bottle your own hot sauce. Yeah. I was thinking, I could make a blog post or even an ebook had crossed my mind at some point. I just never got around to doing it. Now, from your own research, does bottling your own hot sauce differ at all really from hot sauces? Or do you think it's all pretty much the same? Good
question. I really haven't thought about it. I've always, for some reason, had this artificial wall up in my head. Don't go near hot sauces. There's just so many people like you that have it covered and are doing an awesome job covering hot sauce. If I think about it, I wouldn't say it's much different. Because the bottles are a little smaller, maybe the shipping issue isn't as big, but maybe it is the same, But I think the same thing apply. I tell people things to think about when designing a label, things to think about when bottling it, what the color of the bottle and the label looks like compared to the color of the sauce. What is your product strategy? What is your pricing strategy? How do you intend to promote it? And how do you intend to produce a channel to market? As a marketing guy in college. And it's really the same stuff I learned back then. They call it the 4 Ps, and that's product, price, promotion, and placement. And I just used that as kind of the anchor point in the book to kind of to fill in the thoughts in there. But I made it real simple. It's not a lot of words. It's tips and it's inspiration and it's kind of collective knowledge from people that have done it before.
Well, it sounds like really good advice. A lot of people out there think that just the hot sauce manufacturers I've talked to, it's a lot more work than what they're expecting, especially when it came to marketing, when it comes to business, when it comes to graphic design. They have to wear all those shoes, and they didn't really realize it. Just jumping into the game, they thought, I could just kind of do this as a hobby. My family and friends like the sauce, so I'll just produce some bottles. But there's a lot of work that goes into it. I have not read your book yet. It sounds like some really, really good advice.
Yeah. Hopefully people get a lot out of it. The goal is to really be inspirational yet factual, trying to give people the fact that there is a lot of work that goes into it. And like you said, the marketing and the sales stuff is really the hard part. I mean, it's not to say that anyone can come up with a great recipe. I think once you stumble upon a great recipe, you're like, wow, I need to share this with more people. But when you go to create a business out of that, you really got to think of the marketing and the sales stuff. And that's what I've learned from talking to all these other barbecue sauce manufacturers.
People are interested in getting the copy of How to Market Your Barbecue Sauce. How would they go about
doing
it?
Sure. Two things I want to mention there is, first of all, you can go to the site barbecuesaucereviews.com, and there's prominent links on the front page on how to get it. I do price it at $20. The thing is, for other bloggers that may be interested in this, I just started up an affiliate program where people can basically resell it if they want to, if they have people that might be interested in that as well, for 30% of the asking price. So by doing that, I'm hoping to get other people a little bit of cash in their pocket because, to be honest, there's a lot of people blogging out there that are doing some great stuff that aren't getting paid for it. I know the guy from Pig Trip. He does some great barbecue reviews, and I called him up, and I had lunch with him at a barbecue joint local to Boston, and he said he was thinking about getting out of it because, frankly, he said, I'm putting in too much time and not getting paid.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to help people out by maybe putting a little bit of money in their pocket, too.
Well, it's something I definitely will take a look into. Not the money aspect, but just see, if I can just kind of help spread the word about this, just to help other people.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, it's no problem at all. Before we end the call here, is there any last-minute things you want to mention or plug or just kind of blurt out?
I would say, to you, thanks a lot. I've seen your work for quite a while. You're definitely pretty much inspirational to me.
Oh, well, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
There's a lot of video work you've done, podcasting. You've got a trademark voice. You've really done a lot for the space, and I hope people really appreciate your generosity because I certainly do, and it's good stuff that you're doing. Thanks to Jay Prince because he's been with me through the good and bad, and he definitely deserves a lot of credit for what he's done to the site. Please, people, feel free to check out barbecuesaucereviews.com. When the summer rolls back around, we'll be giving out more free sauce. So we like to do a Free Sauce Friday giveaway when we're in the summer, and that would pretty much cover it.
Well, excellent. And for everybody listening, in addition to the links that you've heard, I will put the links in the show notes, so you can just go to weeklyfirecast.com or the number 2guystalking.com/firecast. And you could hit Brian's site, bbqsaucereviews.com. I'll post a link to the book as well. So, Brian, thank you very much for joining me tonight. I appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, Scott. Appreciate it.
Another big thanks goes to Brian for that great interview. I will put the link to BBQ Sauce Reviews in the show notes, as well as a direct link to be able to purchase his book, How to Market Your Barbecue Sauce. And the review of the week again was the Lucky Dog Smoked Habanero Honey Mustard. You can get that at RayCitySauceWorks.com or simply go to the show notes. And to get to the show notes, you could find it at one of two destinations. You can go to weeklyfirecast.com, look for episode 13, the specific episode you're listening to right now, and all the links mentioned are conveniently put out there. All you have to do is click on them and go to whatever it is that you're interested in. Or you can go to the numeral 2 guystalking.com/firecast. Look for episode 13 and you'll find the same show notes there with all the convenient links. So that wraps up another installment of the Weekly Firecast. Don't forget to like my Facebook page at facebook.com/ScottRobertsWeb, or you can follow me at Twitter at twitter.com/ScottRoberts. Or as I mentioned in the very front of the episode, if you share this link on Facebook, if you retweet it, I will mention your name in the very next episode of the podcast. So it would be greatly appreciated if you would spread the word. And thanks to everybody who's listened and downloaded and subscribed to the show. And if you haven't subscribed, what are you waiting for? Go to weeklyfirecast.com or 2guystalking.com/weeklyfirecast. Look for the iTunes link, click on that, hit subscribe, and it will come in your iTunes feed every week. So until next time, God bless everyone, and remember, keep it burning.
This has been the Weekly Firecast. Make sure to subscribe to this podcast via iTunes or at the official website at scottrobertsweb.com/weeklyfirecast. The Weekly Firecast is part of the Two Guys Talking podcast network. For more information on other great Two Guys Talking programming, you can go to twoguystalking.com. That's the number 2, guystalking.com. Thanks for listening. And remember, keep it burning.
You're listening to a podcast appearing on the Two Guys Talking podcast network.
This is the Weekly Firecast, lucky episode 13, interview with Brian Henderson of bbqsaucereviews.com.
Strap yourselves in. It's time for the Weekly Firecast. This is the podcast for all foodies, those who love food that is cooked over a fire or feels like fire in your mouth. If you love spice, smoke, sauce, and all things savory, this is the show for you. And now, here's your host, chili head and barbecuer, Scott Roberts.
And welcome all fiery foods fans, barbecuers, chili pepper lovers, and hot sauce fanatics everywhere out there. Thanks for joining me. I am Scott Roberts, host of the Weekly Firecast here on the Two Guys Talking Podcast Network. If you're unfamiliar with me, I'm a longtime fiery foods blogger. I'm a product reviewer. I'm a columnist for Chili Pepper Magazine. And my base of operations for the past 5 years has been at scottrobertsweb.com. So if you have not visited that site yet, be sure to jump on over, take a look, and see everything that I have to offer for you. In this installment of the podcast, I talked to BBQSauceReviews.com head honcho Brian Henderson. And if you don't know about that website, it's a fantastic resource for everything barbecue related when it comes to, of course, as the name states, barbecue sauces and seasonings, plus they tackle barbecue, electronic and gadget and equipment reviews as well. Great all-around site, so if you don't have that bookmark, be sure to have that bookmark right now. Anyway, I'll be talking with Brian just here in several minutes. Plus, I'm going to be reviewing Race City Sauce Works Lucky Dog Smoked Habanero Honey Mustard. And before I get to those segments, just as promised, I had asked people last episode if you happen to share my link on Facebook, if you retweet my tweet on Twitter with the link of my last podcast episode, that I would mention you here on the podcast. And oh my God, did the retweets and the Facebook shares ever pour in? So I'm going to get to those right now, and I want to thank everyone for helping to spread the word. The podcast is continuing to grow by leaps and bounds as far as the number of downloads, as far as the number of subscribers. It's growing bigger and bigger, huger and huger by the second. Well, I certainly hope it is. Anyway, so here are the people who retweeted the link on Twitter. And this is in no particular order. Christopher Davis, and his Twitter handle is @Chris@RedKey. Neil Hadsall, and his Twitter handle @Neil Hadsall. Sean Mundell, and his Twitter handle is @TGuzzler. David Kelly, and his Twitter handle is @Norn_Ironman. SpiceMad, of course, his Twitter handle is @SpiceMad. And Mark Yeats, and his Twitter handle is @Mr. Yeats. And for all the fine folks who shared it on Facebook, this is also in no particular order. There's Conan Herring, Heath McDowell, Steve Chambers, John Ferguson, and I'm sorry if I'm butchering your name here, Bart Maher. Anyway, Bart has started a chili pepper blog over a Blogspot. I really wish you would kind of come up with a simple domain name. I would, kind of refer people over there. But anyway, thanks to him for doing that. And also sharing a link on Facebook was Mike Eisenberg of Wicked Cactus Sauce. His website is wickedcactussauce.com. Flaming Joe of flamingjoes.com, makers of some great jerk seasoning and pepper jellies. Firehead Thomas Gately. Renee Rohrbach of the Madison Chocolatiers West, which I believe the URL to her website is madisonchocolatierswest.com. Then Mike Holquist of chilipeppermadness.com. And that's chili pepper spelled CHILI, peppermadness.com. Matt Bauhaus, John Dilley of Defcon Sauces, and you can check out his products at defconsauces.com. Steve Seabury of highriversauces.com. And then there's my partner in crime and co-host of the Two Guys Talking Dexter podcast, Mike Wilkerson of the numeral 2guystalking.com. Oh, thanks, Mike. And I also had Jungle Jim's International Market retweet me. Thank you very much to the fine folks there. They have a pair of just ginormous, fantastically interesting grocery stores in the Cincinnati, Ohio area. It's worth a trip to Cincinnati just to go see those. And you can find out more about them at junglejims.com. And last but not least is Jim Duffy at refiningfiredchilies.com. Again, I give my appreciation to everyone who retweeted or had shared my Facebook link to help spread the word about the Weekly Firecast. And guess what? Yep, this week, if you happen to share the link via Twitter or Facebook,